Father, please help us.
For all those who tried to escape that day, the drive out was terrifying. Roads were choked with traffic. The fire was spreading rapidly. Once she realized how bad it was, Christina tried calling 911, hoping firefighters could rescue her mum. Some of the names were on there twice. Other entries are incomplete. Each day, the list swells and shrinks, depending on who else is reported missing and who is found. For evacuees and their families, there's been a haze of confusion and miscommunication. People are scattered and homeless. There's the stress of losing everything, followed by the dread of not being able to connect with a friend or relative.
Hello everyone, this is Alex Castillejos from Just Be Blessed, and thank you so much for tuning in and just to have a little time here hang out with me. And today I have another testimony, and that's right, it's live show, and anything happening when you go live. And I so thankful for the support for the last video, and this is our first videos going live. And today I have a friend and a person that I really care. His name is Brandon Mascareñas, and we're gonna be talking about the story of Paradise, California. It was on fire last year, and like you see all the videos in the beginning, it was very, very, very bad. And I invite him to for this time to share with us. I know it's gonna be hard. I mean, just to see those pictures, right? I mean, just to see those pictures, it's very hard to swallow. But I'm very thankful that Brandon Mascareñas is taking his time, and we're gonna be asking some questions, and he's gonna be telling what he went through. And all right, so let's say hi to him. And how you doing, Brandon? How are you today?
Doing good, man. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me and being part of your program.
Yeah, for sure. And seriously, I really appreciate it, for you accepted, and we're here just talk about, I mean, the terrific event, what happened last year, and the beautiful place of Paradise, California. And but before that, I want to ask you, I mean, how was your life before the fire?
Yeah, I'm a family man, so my wife and 3 children. We moved to Paradise in 2010. Well, I'm from Paradise originally, but relocated to Montana for college, and that's where I met my wife, and we started our family there. But then moved back to Paradise in 2010 to start a video ministry organization with some friends, and that's how we settled in. But we had definitely created a nice life there. As you came to visit, it's a beautiful little mountain town, and it's a good place. So life was good. Yeah, life was really good.
It was very good. Yeah, I remember my first time going to Paradise, and it was kind of warm in Chico, but when you're driving all the way to the mountains, you see all the trees around, and I was like, man, very nice, a little small town. And I believe how many people were living in that town? Man, like 30,000?
Yeah, it's right around 30,000, just under.
Oh, okay. Yeah, very small. Yeah. And I just want to show you, some picture that we just hang out together.
Oh yeah.
But I'm very excited, just to have you here. But I know it's very, very hard, not just you or your family, but a lot of people. I mean, we talk about town. I mean, the whole city is gone. And I mean, how crazy. And please walk us. I mean, how was that morning? I mean, did you get up in the morning and say, oh, you know what, I'm gonna be having a very terrible life and go through flames? And I mean, I'm sure not, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess as you get older, and you can probably attest to this, and especially coming from, a Christian background, you start to think about different things in life. Like, we're all faced with trials and tribulations and certain events in our life. We're not immune to bad things happening. I'm going to just use that term, bad things happening.
Mm,
Um, and I mentioned, as a Christian, I from when I look in the Bible, and you look at different things that potentially are going to happen, or are going to happen in this earth as they get further and further down in history. Bad things are going to happen more and more often in terms of disasters and whatnot. So, um,
mm.
I have those things in my mind that those may happen, but I didn't wake up that particular morning thinking, okay, something is about to go down. I don't know what, this fire is going to be crazy, So
Yeah,
I didn't have that in my mind.
yeah, totally. So and I'm, I know I went to the media and find out some information and stuff like that, but it was early in the morning. I mean, when you get up and you see some smoke, or it was an afternoon. At what time it started the fire? Or
Yeah. So, kind of backing up just a little bit,
sure,
um, well, I'm actually going to back up even like a
go
whole
go ahead,
year
go ahead.
prior to
We
that.
had time. I mean, is it?
So well, I guess it would have been 2 summers ago.
Mhm.
And it wasn't even the summer. It was back in the fall, October and November. There was a fire in kind of the Napa Valley area, Santa Rosa
Mm,
area, which is about 3 hours south of here, kind of close to San Francisco.
mhm,
And they had this huge wildfire that kind of tore through an urban area and destroyed a lot of buildings and homes and whatnot. And that was kind of it was the biggest, just most destructive fire up
mhm,
to that point. And what was interesting about that was, in years past, fire season, as they call it, was usually
mhm,
um, late summer, so maybe August, as the ground starts to dry, and then it gets hotter and hotter. So fire season would be in August. Well, now over the last few years, we've started to see fire season being pushed all the way into October, November,
mm,
and so, which is really strange. So usually in November we have, at least for Paradise, at least 5 inches of rain, and it's cooler temperatures. But now uh, the weather and climate is changing so that it's dry and hot, and it's not cooling down, and we're not
mm.
getting rain in the fall when we're supposed to. Um, so
Weird,
anyway, yeah.
very
So
weird.
yeah, strange. So
Mhm,
the year before the fire that happened in Paradise, um, almost to the year that that fire happened in Santa Rosa, and then a year later the campfire happened. So
wow.
already, like I was saying, that season was dry, or the area was dry. It didn't rain. It was hot. It was just kind of perfect conditions for a fire to happen um, on that particular day.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's. Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. At the same time, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, remember, guys. I mean, this is live show, and like I said, anything happen, and it's live. I mean, Brandon is not. I mean, it's live, right?
Oh, totally live. Yeah.
Still live. Okay, so yeah, tell us, please. Go ahead.
So the days, just a few days before the fire, PG&E, or Pacific Gas and Electric, they're the utility company for California. They started sending out notifications. Um, we would get them via text message or email alerts, that they may be shutting off the power because of the high fire risk. Um, and so they said, okay, on let's see, when was it? I think it was Tuesday they were going to shut off the power, and then probably Wednesday as well. And they were giving us these notifications, I think, on the Sunday and Monday before they were going to shut off the power. So on Tuesday, the day they were
Mm,
supposed to shut off the power, um, they did shut off the power, but it was only to a few homes and residents. It was a small percentage of Paradise that they shut off the power. My house actually was included in that, so I think my house was one of maybe 50 houses that had their power shut off. Um, but the weather was perfect. There was no wind. It was just a perfect weather condition. And we were like, why are they shutting off the power
Nice weather,
um,
not crazy or
when
something.
it's nice weather? Yeah, and I think I even posted something on social media, like
Mm,
kind of how this was just kind of a mild inconvenience, and it was just kind of weird. So anyway, Tuesday night they send the same notification, like we're probably going to shut off the power on tomorrow, Wednesday, um, and um, and just be prepared for it.
mm,
Excuse me, I'm misspoken. Misspeaking. So Wednesday they shut off the power, and then they said on Thursday they're going to shut off the power as well.
mm.
So Thursday, let's see. At this point, my wife and I were getting up super early, around 5 a.m., and we were running together as exercise. We'd go for a little jog
Mhm.
up the bike path, um, and that would be kind of our routine 3 or 4 days a week, at around 5:30 in the morning. And so we got up and we were running on the bike path, and we noticed that there was a windstorm during the middle of the night, or just the wind had blown really hard at night, and I slept through it. I didn't
Totally.
remember or wake up to wind or anything. But on the bike path, we could see just pine needles covering the whole bike path that had blown over by the wind. And so it was a little strange that way.
And those things on the fire, I mean, that thing is like burn very fast.
Oh yeah, it's fuel because they're all dry pine needles, So
Yeah,
it's just like fuel just laying on the ground.
sure.
Yeah, so um, on that run, I was telling my wife Noelle, I was like, I'm not. Something feels off. I don't feel. My mind isn't like in a weird spot. Like I just didn't feel. It wasn't that I felt sick. It just felt different. I don't know if I felt stress or anxiety or something, but I was supposed to have a client of mine down in Chico, which is about a 20 to 30-minute commute, depending where you're going in Chico from Paradise. I had a meeting that morning. I was going to help shoot some video and do some other things for him. I had to meet him at 8 o'clock. And so the plan was I was going to go for the run, shower, get the kids ready for school, and then leave. Um, and my wife's routine is help once we're done exercising, um, get ready, and then she goes to work. She worked at the hospital, which was on the other side of Paradise from
Mhm.
where we lived, and she usually drops off the kids at school on her way to work. So, um, so I'm supposed to have this appointment at 8 o'clock in the morning, but on the run with my wife, I said, hey, I think I'm gonna cancel, and I'm not gonna go in. I'm gonna take a rain check and postpone that because I don't feel good right now mentally and other things. It was just kind of this weird, unsettling feeling. So
Mm.
yeah. Um, so we get back home after a run, and I call my client, and I could tell he's a little upset because I'm canceling at him, last minute. And but I mean, it is what it is, and
Yeah.
he was fine with it at the end. So I jump in the bathroom, the shower, and when I'm out and starting to get ready, um, my wife comes in and says, "I think there's a fire. I can't tell where or what's going on." And sure enough, we go look outside, and you could just see this. The sky was already turning orange, and because of the smoke cloud, and it was starting to just kind of change the way the atmosphere looked. It was kind of eerie. And what we've seen smoke clouds before, so it wasn't anything new, but it was a little different, and maybe because it was so close. But remember, at this time we didn't know how close it was or where it was exactly. Um, but but definitely it was kind of odd because the sky was turning darker, but at the same time it was also orange. Um, so I quickly finished getting dressed, and then I got my little drone, and I took it up in the sky to kind of see if I could tell where that fire was. And I I could see that it was not too far away, but still, with the drone, you can't really tell distance. Like you can't tell if something is 5 miles or 20 miles or whatever.
Uh-huh.
It's just not a good indicator of how far the fire is away. So at that point, we started looking on social media on Facebook to see, okay, does anybody know where this fire is? And sure enough, it's coming up that this fire is started in this place called Polga, which is, as the crow flies, it's about 7 miles away. If you were to drive by car, it would take, I don't know, 40 minutes to get there,
Mhm.
maybe, because you got to go on this windy road all the way to get over there.
40
But it's
minutes north
to,
or east from.
it would be northeast. So,
Okay.
but actually, no, it was directly east of Paradise.
Okay.
So the way Paradise sits, it's on this ridge, and it sits between two canyons that go north and south. And so, on the eastern canyon, the Feather River Canyon, there is to the east of that canyon, there's Polga, and then these other communities, Concow and whatnot. And so that's where the fire started, was on the eastern side. So we found out where that was, but we didn't worry about it too much, because there's been other fires over the years that have come kind of over that mountain range and kind of come down to the canyon,
Mhm.
but they've never come up the other side of the. Well, I take that back. There has been some fire that's come up the other side close to Paradise, but it was usually taken care of, and it kind of died out or whatever. So
Uh,
we didn't think too much of it at that time. Yeah, so that when we found that out, we started to think of a plan, like, okay, just in case, what are we going to do? Are we going to start packing bags? How are we going to get ready?
mm. At what time is that
Because
when you kind of like realize, I mean,
oh
it's
yeah,
fire, you make a decision like, okay, we're gonna do pack or something? Because I have a picture of your son standing up in the fence
oh
and
yeah,
is looking the fire. I remember you told me that. I mean, at what time is what you say that to your wife, and at what time is that picture was taken, that one?
yeah. So that picture there, they haven't gone to school yet. So this is part of our, we're getting
Okay.
ready for school. And so you can see in that picture what I mean by this. The sky is turning gray and orange at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. So um, this was 7:30 maybe at this point. And I can't remember. I don't know off the top of my head what time the fire supposedly started. I don't know that
Okay.
hard answer.
All right. So that was like 7:30 before you kids are going to school, right? You,
Yes,
you
yes,
went for a little walk or run with your wife, like around 5:30 or something like that, early in the morning.
yeah,
So
yeah,
like, I mean, I guess, I mean, sometimes it's not like you get up in the morning and go do your stuff and you're thinking, oh, it's gonna be a fire today, or I'm gonna go check the
yeah,
sky or something like that. I mean, you do your stuff and sometimes you
yeah.
don't look up the sky. But we're talking about a couple hours, and I see in the picture, I mean, smoke, man. I mean, like it's, I don't know if it's the fire very close, but I mean, you can see the smoke is very close.
Yeah, and that's when I look at that picture, it reminds me of
Hmm.
that feeling that it was close. Like, um, I being living in Montana and then growing up in Northern California. Like I said, it's not that and I'm sure you've experienced this too, being in Oregon. It's not,
Hmm.
you're used to forest fires,
Yeah.
wildfires and forest fires,
Hmm.
but a lot of times you can see the smoke from miles and miles away, and you know that it's a long ways away. Like
Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah. It is.
you're like, man, that's sad that there's a forest fire, but that's like 50 miles away.
Yeah. You're thinking, okay, you need
This,
to be crossing this mountain. Need to be crossing this mountain. Okay, we have 8
yeah,
hours or something like that.
exactly,
You know?
yeah. So, but that feeling, when I look at that picture, I remember that feeling of it, like, wow, that feels like that's 2 or 3 streets away from me. It feels like it was that close. And so that's why I put up my drone, because part of it, I wanted to see, if the fire is that close. I want to be ready with my family, because
Mm.
there was no emergency notifications, local emergency responders. They didn't put any kind of dispatch out saying you need to evacuate or anything. So I don't know. So that's why I put out that drone in the sky to kind of see where it was at. But yeah, so I would say the fire started, if I remember. Actually, I can't remember. So I think I did read it somewhere, but I can't remember. I think it was just before 7 o'clock in the 6 o'clock hour, late, like maybe 6:30, 6:45 or something is when they suspect it started. But I don't know that for sure.
Yeah. Uh,
So go ahead.
no, please tell us. I mean, now you were talking. I mean, we were talking. I mean, you were telling us that you told your wife, it's like, hey, what are we gonna do? I mean, we're gonna get you. We need to pack stuff and leave the house. I mean, we're talking about all your belongings. I mean, home.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just I don't know. It just I think it was the next day after the fire, and I know I'm kind of jumping a little bit, but I remember I called you because I was like, I want to find out how he's doing, right? And I remember I called you and words didn't come out from my mouth, and I was like, I mean, of course we say sorry. I mean, are you okay? What's going? I hope you're doing well, whatever. But seriously, it was kind of like an empty inside of me. Seriously, like, oh my goodness, one of my good friends. I mean, that's he's going through. No home. I mean, burn. I mean, it's like I don't know. It was no words.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that, and I think, and that's actually a good reminder and lesson, because I think when people go through hardships, it's sometimes hard for us to react as humans. A lot of us don't have that natural empathy to empathize with people and their hardships. A lot of times we don't have the words, and sometimes that's okay, as long as people they can demonstrate that they care in some other way than just words. Like, even if people just say, "Here, I'm here for you if you need to talk about it," or even just the simple fact well, and I'm using you as an example, like, you called, so that you didn't even have to say anything regarding, I'm sorry, all that. You don't have to, as long as that effort is made of, like, you calling to check in. That means so much to people that go through that stuff. And I can talk about that later as we go on, but that's
sure.
Yeah, so that was huge when people like you and other people that called to check in and see if we were okay. That meant the world. That was amazing. So
cool.
It's all good.
Good.
But the year before, I talked about that Santa Rosa fire. Well, that fire, actually, that was a crazy event, because like 14 fires across that area region had started simultaneously, and they had linked it back to utility power lines and whatnot. But so that was over I think 2-day period, that like 14 fires started in one night. And then over the next couple of days, a few other fires started. And one fire actually started in the Paradise area on the Western Canyon. And I could see flames. In fact, I even have drone footage of that, of the flames kind of coming up the canyon. And it was pretty crazy. But we were actually ordered to evacuate then. And so we packed our bags up and we evacuated Paradise at that time. That was a year before the campfire.
Wow. So, and I'm kind of a visual guy. So when you say the canyon, and you were having the drone and flames are coming through the canyon.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, where my house was,
that's
like,
remember.
So let's just pretend this is. Let's see. I'm trying to look at this as the camera.
It's a little. Your house, it was down a little bit.
It was, but if you looked at like the ridge, like my hand is like the ridge where Paradise was.
Okay.
So there's a canyon on the left side, or on the west side, and a canyon on the east side.
Yeah.
My house was closer to the Western Canyon.
Okay.
And so the fire was in the Western Canyon and came up. So I didn't fly my drone over the canyon and over the fire. I was above my house, but I was still able to see well enough. I was that close to the canyon that I was able to see the fire come up at that point and just kind of toast that area. But like I said, we had to evacuate, and so we packed up our bags and got everything kind of in a rush, and we evacuated Paradise. it was really funny because at that time, my kids, what they decided to grab out of the house were things that, like, non-essentials, like a bag of chips and their little piggy banks, and things that you and I as adults, you don't think to grab a bag of chips, or
Mhm.
or see it as a kid would, but we got a good laugh out of that, kind of what they decided to take.
But nobody
So
expect that. You know what I'm saying? Nobody expect that I'm gonna leave my house because fire is
yeah,
coming. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's just no.
You don't, and that's you don't, but and that's why, like, if people live in natural disaster prone areas,
Mhm.
it's a good idea. I can't recommend this enough and encourage people enough to have a plan. Put together an evacuation plan.
Mm.
Put all your papers. I know I'm kind of getting ahead here. We'll get back to our
Sure,
our
sure, yeah, yeah.
evacuation story here in a
Hmm.
second, but all your important papers or copies of your papers, keep them somewhere that you can grab them, like if you need to leave, and you go through with your whole family, you go through these different drills of, like, okay, if we need to leave right now,
You
where are
got 10
these things that we
seconds
need to
or
get?
something like that.
Yeah,
You got 30
yeah.
minutes, 10 seconds. Well, I mean, 10
y-
minutes.
Yeah, if you have no time at all, like, what are you going to grab? Where is it at? So you're not spending
Hmm.
time trying to figure it out. So I encourage people that are in those areas that are prone to natural disasters, or even if they're not, just to be ready to be able to leave your house at a moment's notice, and take what you need. So 2 year or the year before the campfire,
Hmm.
when we evacuated for just about 5 hours, and then we were able to go back home because the fire got put out. So keeping that in mind, when we were getting ready to evacuate, or thinking about evacuating, this was before 8 o'clock, so my kids were all ready to go to school, and my wife was going to drop them off and go to work. um, I said, okay, just kids, set aside your clothes that you want to take, and put them in a bag and put them by the door, and I'll load them in the car in the event that we need to leave.
Hmm.
um, Again, I jumped forward back to the campfire. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. But um, so yeah, so this is the campfire now. So I told the kids, before you go to school, put your clothes in a bag, put it by the door, and I'll load it in the car
Hmm.
and be ready to go. And so they did, and this time they were a little bit more prepared. It wasn't, let's grab the bag of chips or grab this little thing. A year later, they knew, okay, I need to grab um, a small bag of clothes that will get me through the weekend, if that needs to be, and
Yeah.
important papers my wife was thinking about too. So um, my wife left with the kids, and she pulled into the school to drop them off. And my father, who's actually the principal of the school there, the Paradise Adventist school, he had already made the decision to cancel school and evacuate the school. He had got a tip from somebody saying that their fire is coming towards Paradise really fast. And he didn't even think twice about it. It was like an instant decision. It's like, okay, school's canceled. We need to evacuate. So they were turning parents around, like, right away. I don't think there was hardly any other parent, or there wasn't too many parents that had to turn around and come back to pick their kids up. Um, and so Noelle was able to make a decision then, uh, with the kids. Okay, should I go to work? Should I bring the kids home, or what? So she called her work, and her colleague was like, "Don't even come in. There's already fire, or trees on fire, on the hospital campus," which was the Feather River Hospital is right on the canyon side, on the eastern canyon where the fire was coming from. So it's like, if you were on the hospital campus, you can look down into the canyon. It's a beautiful view. It's absolutely gorgeous. But the fire had come that way, and by 7:45 it was already in Paradise. So in probably less than an hour, it had already moved that far, which is crazy. And they say that it was moving 80 football fields a minute. So if you can imagine the length of one football field times 80, that's how fast it was moving. 80
Wow.
football fields a minute, as far as the fire was moving across. It
Yeah.
was pretty crazy. And I've seen footage now, like, from the firefighters that were on in close to where the fire had started, how fast the wind was blowing. It was like 50 to 70 miles an hour wind gusts were just pushing that fire, which was crazy. And this also contributed to the fire starting and igniting as fast as it would. Is it lifted up the embers from like the trees and was just what's the word I'm looking for? Floating or pushing the embers all the way through the sky and just dropping down. In fact, I remember before the kids went to school, and when I had my drone up, chunks of tree bark and embers were just falling from the sky onto our house. And I can remember it hitting the drone. Like I have footage of it, like the ember just hitting the camera. Yeah,
Wow.
it was crazy.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
it was intense. But we didn't see any fire yet. I mean, we could still see the smoke. But at this point, we didn't see any fire. So Noelle made the decision. Okay, her colleague told her not to come in, so she just turned around from the school there and brought the kids back home. And then we all finished together as a family, just putting our stuff together. We decided, okay, what are we going to get? We need to, get all our stuff together and load it up. And
Also,
we kind of were just playing it by ear. Go
yeah,
ahead.
and also you have your mom and dad listen in the same town. I mean, I'm sure you have family too. I mean, do you call them and say, "Hey, we meet you in Chico," or "Are you guys okay?"
Yeah, that's a good question. So
I don't know.
Yeah, so in Paradise,
Mhm.
my parents live there. My mom and dad, my sister and her two boys live there. My grandma lived there as well, and then I have an aunt that lived in Paradise too.
Mhm.
And my grandma and an aunt lived close to the hospital. Actually, my parents lived close to the hospital too, so they lived right on that eastern canyon. So they were some of the first to potentially see the fire at before anybody else. And then my sister lived close to that side too. So me and my family, we are on the opposite side of town of where they were. So, but yeah, so I was already calling them and telling them, okay, you guys need to get out of there. And I was getting calls from friends. In fact, the client that I was supposed to meet, he called me and said, "Brandon, you need to get out of Paradise," because
Thank you for not coming
his
or
brother,
something.
yeah, thanks. His brother-in-law works for the fire department, and he was already on call up in those mountains, and he was telling my clients like, "This fire is bad. People need to evacuate right now." But Paradise still was not like putting it out there, time to evacuate. I don't know what happened, but there was a break in communication. Like there was no mass communication. Hey, leave. Time to get out now.
Mm.
That just wasn't there. So I'm talking to my client, and he's like, "Brandon, you got to get out now. Drop whatever you're doing. Get out of here." And we hadn't left yet, but we had our cars pretty much packed. And I didn't know at this point. I didn't know how bad the fire was or where it was at. And when you think about a fire as it moves, you think of it just kind of moving like a wall, from
Mhm.
you know
When it's burning,
horizontal. Yeah,
it's
you just think it's just going to push along, whatever. But like I said, those embers were just the wind was pushing the embers, and so all of a sudden, what it was doing, because all of Paradise was so dry,
down,
it was just dropping embers all over, and so fires were starting. So if you can
burning
imagine, like
everywhere.
things leapfrogging, after another like this. Um, so yeah, you had the big wall of fire moving this way, but it was starting fires ahead of where the wall was. So now there was fire starting in the middle of Paradise before this wall of fire had even met Paradise yet. And then so Paradise started to burn from the inside and go out this way too. And then there was fires on the West Canyon burning all up that way as well. So it was just like everywhere all at once.
Wow, terrified. Wow. I'm gonna be showing pictures, and if you want
Mhm.
to go through things or something like that, I mean, go for
Okay,
it. Okay.
sure.
So I have, I just went to the internet and get some pictures or stuff like that and grab something. And
Mhm.
I mean, we're talking about the trees; they're gone. I mean, of course, burn all night. I mean, this is terrifying. I mean,
Yeah. So right, this picture here, that's the hospital there on the as I see it, it's on the left. You see the sign that says
mm,
Feather River Hospital. So
yeah.
the and to the left would be the east, and so the fire was pushing that way. And as you can see, the sun is kind of coming up there
Hmm.
above the trees there. What was interesting is if you go on YouTube and you look up campfire videos, you'll see a number of videos of people escaping in cars, and it was like midnight. It was so dark, like it was almost like yeah, it was like nighttime. It was crazy, but it was not even 10 a.m. So
Wow. I can seriously. It's just like I'm speechless. I mean, early in the morning, trying to have a good time or have plans or something, and now you're dealing with this terrifying. I mean,
yeah,
burning the whole city. I mean, how crazy is that? And
so
huh?
I'm going to draw a little crude picture of a paradise here, and I'll put it up. It's just a pencil drawing. You may not be able to see it, but
Okay.
I don't know if you guys can
Yeah, I can
if you
see
can
it.
see that. Okay,
Yeah.
so these lines right here are, I'm just depicting like the road system. Like so, there's three main roads in paradise.
Okay.
There's and they all kind of converge in the middle and kind of go down. Let's see. So it's all backwards. So okay, so right up here is the north, and then if you go this way, you eventually end up in the valley, like Chico area and whatnot.
Okay.
So there's really only I mean, there's a couple other little roads that go down to the valley, but
Hmm.
there's three main roads. And
Sky something, right?
oh yeah, Skyway is the main one.
Sky.
And then if you go east from Skyway, there's two other main roads, and they're only 2-lane roads, except if you get down further down Skyway, it turns into 4-lane. But um, the fire was so intense and it spread so much that it really started to close down those escape routes. And there was, if you can imagine, 50,000 people trying to leave, because it wasn't just Paradise. Above Paradise, there was another little community called Magalia, and you had all of Magalia evacuating too. So everyone is trying to go south, and they're trying to funnel through this little uh, these three little roads, and it was creating a choke point. So you have all these traffic jams where people were sitting in their cars for 6, 7, 8 hours, not being able to move. And so you can imagine how terrifying that would be to people. Like, fires burning around them, and they're sitting in their car and they cannot go anywhere.
Seven
Um,
hours in your car
yeah,
with the fire behind you.
yeah, and literally
It's
it
only take
takes
like 20 minutes to go from
well
from paradise
to
to
get out
Chico.
of yeah, if you to get out of Paradise just to the bottom of the hill, and not even into Chico, it takes 6 minutes, 8 minutes. You get down the bottom of the hill and you're out of Paradise. It
And
doesn't take that long at all, maybe 5 minutes. But people are in their cars from 3 to 6, 7 hours, just sitting, wondering if they're going to make it or not. But um,
well,
yeah, so that it was pretty, you know, pretty uh, pretty terrifying for a lot of people.
yeah, I mean,
There were so many firefighting personnel from all over that came,
mhm,
from even out of state, which was amazing. It was
mhm.
so grateful to have people from out of state, firefighters, risking everything to just come help on this fire. So, but immediately, fire departments and from the surrounding areas that were coming in, it became such an intense situation that they stopped worrying about trying to save structures, like trying to save houses, and they went into full prevention mode of making sure the fire did not spread any further than Paradise.
Oh, of
So, if there's a few house fires, they're going to try to save the house, but
course.
so many houses were on fire and burning. They were like, okay, we can't save the houses anymore. We need to just make sure the fire doesn't go outside Paradise. So
Yeah,
that was pretty crazy. Yeah, I think this was that might be at the hospital or one of the retirement nursing homes that they're just evacuating people.
I mean, just people just leave their car. I mean, just I'm kind of like I'm leaving. I don't care about the car.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people that ended up evacuating their cars because it was jammed, and people,
Mhm.
emergency personnel were telling them, just, you leave your car, you need to get out of here, go on foot. And a lot of people did. They just left their car and ran for it. Other people, whether they couldn't see the road because the smoke was so intense, might have driven off the road there. So it was pretty crazy. Yep, you see the line of cars there. All the people that just abandoned the cars.
It's just intense. I mean, seriously. I mean, this is not Hollywood. This is not something somebody came out. This is reality. That was just happened last year. I mean, some people watching this, I don't know, another part of the world. No, this has happened. The whole city of Paradise, California, and just burned in pieces. Wow, can you imagine? I mean, it's in hours. In hours, it was just destroyed.
Yeah. Well, and it's sad. I think about, because there's a number of people that unfortunately died, and some of them died in their car. They got trapped in their car and they couldn't get out, and they died in their car. It was really sad. I think 85 people died. The fire, because the fire burned so fast and so hot, and because of all those conditions, it was dry, it was windy, low humidity, and yeah, it was just, it was really interesting that with this fire, and the way it burned, like if you were to take a tour through Paradise, it was really odd, because you'll see like a whole neighborhood completely flattened by the fire, but then all of a sudden you'll see maybe one or two houses that didn't get burned. You're like, how in the world is that house still standing?
I saw that.
All the houses around. Yeah.
I just went to Reno area, going to Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
And we went to family this past summer, and I told Laura, hey, I want to pass through Paradise, because I just see it in video, pictures, stuff like that, and I visited Paradise 3 times, and for lunch, I mean, we went to the Mexican restaurant, get some burritos, I spent a night for the weekend, your house, and with another friends, I spent a night. So, kind of like, Paradise. I mean, I know where's Paradise. So we drove, and seriously, I mean, it's very devastating. But like what you were saying, like everything's burned, and one house in the middle, nothing, and didn't burn at all. I mean, how you explain that? I mean, God, I mean, I don't know. I mean, water around. I mean, I don't know. It's just things,
Yeah, there's prior to experiencing this, and I'll be the first to admit that some things that we can't explain as humans, there's things that we can't understand, and so we try to make up scenarios to explain it, because we don't quite. I think it's our natural desire to want to be able to fit all the pieces in and be able to say, if there's things that don't make sense or we don't understand, we want to come up with something so it makes sense to us, like we can fully understand it. And so, when I talked about that Santa Rosa fire, a lot of the same thing happened, where there was a building that didn't burn, but everything else around it stood standing. And it was like, well, how does that happen? How is that possible? And, I think there's a lot of conspiracies that came out and have come out and say, well, there's this conspiracy that says that, the fire burned this way and didn't burn that way, whatever. And it's easy to believe in that. And I found myself kind of saying, well, that makes sense. But after going through the campfire and really seeing how the fire moved and worked, it's like, that I see that is pretty evident of how and why this can't be a conspiracy. And I'm not going to get into what those conspiracies are, but
of course,
you think about like when a fire moves through, and those embers, like I was saying, they're hot, live embers, flying through the air. They get sucked in through the air vents in houses, and they'll maybe start the fire. The fire will start in the attic. Sometimes, I don't know if you've ever had leaves, where the hood of your car meets the windshield, and there's that space where your windshield wipers are, and there's sometimes leaves will get in there.
Okay, yeah.
An ember will drop in there, and this happened to a couple cars, and the car was driving off, and all of a sudden it catches on fire
because of the heat, around or something.
Yeah,
because those ones are, I mean, been dry for maybe a couple months,
Yep.
and just a little
Yep.
flame and just bam, you know.
And
And
so
go ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
The fire wants to burn something. It's looking for food, and it's looking for something like um, fast food, if you will, or food
Mm,
that's easily edible. So
mm,
it can start burning a tree that's somewhat dry, but if it finds elements of a house that are like petroleum based, made from plastics and things that are going to combust and almost ignite even sooner, it's going to go that direction. So that was the common scene where you'd see a tree that was burned, but it didn't burn to ash. But yet you see these houses that burn complete to the bottom because these houses are made of, plastics and dry wood and all this other stuff. So
yeah.
um, anyway, yeah. So I where was I in our little I'll just wrap up saying,
Go ahead.
we didn't have personally, my family and I, my wife and three kids, we didn't have like an incredible scary story trying to leave paradise.
Hmm.
Thankfully, our house is right next to a small road that leaves out of paradise, and so we left around 9:30, and we didn't have any traffic. We got down in just a matter of minutes. Um, However, my sister and my parents, they had to sit through it because they lived on the other side of town, and I was talking to my sister
Wow.
and trying to guide her through, trying to get her to go through certain ways. In my mind, I was like, okay, you need to go on this road to avoid all these traffic jams. And she gets to one point and there's just flames all around, and she starts freaking out, like, and she has her two boys with her, and she's thinking, this is it, we're gonna die. And I have her on speakerphone and talking to her, and my son's in the car, and he just starts crying because he's thinking he's going to hear his aunt and cousins die on the phone, in the car,
Wow.
because there's flames all around him. And it's interesting how people act during traumatic situations, or like, we don't think clearly, and that's why it's good to practice and think about evacuations and what you
You're
would
right.
do in events like that. So I was like, all it was interesting because all the cars in that traffic jam were all just lined up on the right side of the road,
Hmm.
and there was the whole left lane that was completely empty, and like nobody was using it. And so I told my sister, "Is like, as safely as possible, get in that other lane and just pass all these cars and get out of there. Don't stick around." You people just don't think about. They're just thinking of staying in one line and not even moving.
And like stay there, right?
So yeah, but she got out. It took her about 2.5 hours to get out. And then my parents also got out. They had kind of a similar um,
Appearance.
intense story, scary story. But other people had it even worse than that. They thought they were about
Mm.
to die, and I know I have some friends that were ready to end their life because they didn't want to die by the flames. They were ready to cut their wrists or something, because they didn't want to be burned up. They were that close to killing themselves. But thankfully,
That is
because
crazy.
they were in a traffic jam, but I think it was a miracle they were able to get out, and you know, so there was a lot of those stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, we made it out, and so yeah.
I'm gonna show you the picture you post about your house,
Okay.
and that's over here.
Oh yeah. So
Uh,
that was my house.
that was your house.
Yeah. So, um, as you can, I don't know if people can remember, but like
Those
in the
stairs. I remember
back,
those stairs.
yep, and you can kind of see those two little brown barrels in the back. Um, from that picture of my son standing on the railing, that's kind of where he was standing, was over there.
Mm,
Um, and so, yeah, so facing that direction is the direction to go to, south down to Chico,
okay.
and then I guess on the right side would be the West Canyon.
Mm.
But yeah, that
Uh,
was my house.
and I remember, the conversation we were, when I was dead and talk or something like that. I remember you told me that uh, you grew up in the house. I mean, it's not something like you just bought it 5 years ago or something like that. I mean, it was recent. I mean, it was I don't know how many 20 years and you family the house. I mean, for how long they own the house?
Yeah, so it was a family house. So we grew up in there. I think it was 1993 or 4 is when my parents bought the home, and the home has just stayed in our family. And so my sister lived in it for a number of years, and then we moved into it in 2010. Um, and so my parents had lived on the other side of town. So yeah, so it's just been in our kind of our family for
Yeah.
a really long time. But so yeah, there's a lot of memories and whatnot associated with that house, and good memories.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, so what was the experience after the fire? Your first experience going back home, going back to paradise. I mean, you're standing in front of your house and it's gone. I mean,
Yeah, so it was a pretty crazy experience. You know, they didn't let anybody go into paradise for, boy, it was like a month and a half, almost 2 months, you know, before, because up to this point they had to search the whole town for bodies, you know, for people that maybe have died, and searching for bodies, because uh, there was a list of like 1,000 people that were missing, and so they had to go through every house structure, everything that burned down, and look for like bones or teeth or something before. And so days and weeks, whatever, people were just, you know, uh, forensics. I think that's what it was, you know, with the sheriff and, you know, these other had to go through. So they didn't let anybody into paradise, everyday people, for like 2 months. So yeah,
oh,
the
that's
first time we get to
crazy.
paradise, yeah, crazy. So the first time we get to paradise, it was kind of rainy and overcast and whatnot, and it was a little weird. We were I know I personally was excited to kind of go see it for the first time. I think Noel was too. The kids were not excited whatsoever to go up there, which I don't blame them.
Yeah.
But I'm having a hard time remembering like how I actually felt, because part of me felt um, like I remember feeling like I should feel a lot more sad about this, but at the same time I didn't.
You were safe. I mean, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people, they lost their mom, their dad, or something like that.
Yeah.
I know, you know, you lost your house, but praise the Lord. I mean, nobody's dead in your family, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and there was those reminders, because there was elements of things that we could see from our home, like cups, you know, certain cups or mugs from the kitchen didn't burn, or a part of, you know, a tool or a bike or something was you could see a little bit of it. And so I was reminded of those things, but I wasn't really sad. It was almost like I had forgotten about that part of my life. And so I guess it was also kind of surreal that growing up in that home and having so many memories from that home were like completely, the memories weren't gone, but just the environment that those
Yeah.
memories had been part of was completely erased.
Wow.
So excuse me. So yeah, part of it, I didn't feel too sad, but it was just a little surreal, I guess.
Wow. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy
Yeah.
ride. Crazy ride. Wow, I cannot believe it. I know we can talk about the house, I'm sure, for many times, but I remember the first time I'm I'm just gonna say it. I remember the first time I go to your house, and then you tell me, you said, okay, we have a guest room in the corner over there, and I'm thinking, okay, I mean, that's great, you know, I'm gonna stay the night, you know, in Brandon's house. So I went, I opened the door. That was a king size. I mean, it was a very nice and very nice set. I mean, really, like, I was better than a hotel. And I was like, wow, I thought it was just a little bed, you know, kind of like that's a guess, you know, just go over there and spend the night and that's it, right? No, that was very nice bedroom. And I was like, wow, I think I have better bedroom than his. So that was very nice.
Yeah.
It was very surprising. Okay. I'm so thankful, you know, of course, I'm so thankful that you're alive and other people and suddenly, I mean, many people lost their life and they went through really bad situation. And how long did it took you from Paradise? I think you say like 2.5 hours because you left like at 9:30 in the morning.
Well, for us personally, for me and my family, it didn't take us very long to get out of Paradise. Like I said, we lived on this
Mm.
little road that was able to get out of Paradise, and because we left early enough,
Mm.
um,
So you make
the
a
traffic was
decision, I
going
mean,
elsewhere.
quick, like you say, you know what, let's go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and part of that decision was based on we saw a fire start again. I told you about the fire that started the year before in the
It's
canyon.
so you get a little.
Well, it started again this fire. Like the embers had gone and started a fire over there,
Mm.
and we could start to see the smoke and flames, and already people were telling us we need to get out of there.
So you
So
make that
we,
decision, you and your family, hey kids, let's do it, and I'm out of here. You know, just grab the stuff
Y-
and
Yeah, so we made that decision like right away just to get out of there.
okay.
Once we made that decision, it was plain to get out of there. So we immediately evacuated to Chico and
Yeah.
left.
So okay, we're talking about now is it's been a year
Hmm.
after the whole this craziness. Seriously, every time I talk about it, I was like, I cannot believe it. But how it affect your kids' life? You know, how is the Mascareñas family after a year of this losing home? You know.
Yeah, so um, it was it definitely was. Here, hang on one second before I get
Mhm.
into that.
Go ahead.
Can I want to put it on pause here because I'm let's see.
Remember, this is life, guys. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah,
Sorry. Yeah. You don't know what's going to happen.
that's right.
So,
All right.
okay, I can hear you better. I didn't have it on my earphones died.
Uh huh.
That's yeah, technology.
I know, right?
Anyway, uh my kids have been really good.
Mm,
I think it's definitely affected each one of them a little bit different.
mm,
Something I didn't mention earlier is Paradise was, it was more than just losing our home. We lost, you know,
community,
the
church.
hospital where my wife worked, that was gone. The kids' school was gone for the most part. They everything that they had known, a lot of their friends,
Mm,
all their majority of their friends lost everything. And then we had a lot of friends within the church, and then that we belonged to, and then even in the local community. Um, we lost that too, and so um, we pretty much lost everything in that regards. And so
mm,
that was tough. And so for my kids, um, kids are, they say this a lot, but kids are resilient, and they are. I was able to see that firsthand. But they don't want anything to do with Paradise. Like they have no desire to go back up there or start a new home up there again. It's like that's kind of maybe bad memories, and rightfully so. It's like I don't want anything to do with that anymore. So, um,
and right now,
but
the community, I see in the news, kind of like a rebuilding the bridge or
mhm.
something. I don't know what's the whole sentence, but it's like rebuilding paradise or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna
So
ask you a
yeah,
question. I mean, if your kids said, "Well, it's fine, whatever," but what is the head of the house? I mean, how you feel like you want to go try again or
yeah. So we, I think it's definitely a little while ago. I was really gung ho about let's get back up to Paradise and rebuild our home and whatnot.
Mhm,
But even then, I was thinking that maybe that will be 2 or 3 years down the road, and we're still leaving that as a possibility.
mhm,
But both Noel and I had to make the decision. Let's slow things down. Let's Paradise is not, at least for us, and this is, I can't speak for, because there's many friends of ours that are, that they're already building their homes back up there, or that their house didn't burn and they're back up there,
mhm,
um, and they're anxious to get up there, and that's great, and definitely we support them. But what works for our family is
mhm.
we're relocated here in Chico, and um, we're just kind of going day by day, week by week, and year by year. And you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, if we feel the time is right, Paradise would be a great place to move back to and
Yeah,
you know start it again. So, but as now we're good where we live here in Chico now. We've relocated.
that's great. So I have a
Yeah.
question for you.
Mhm.
So what is the thing that the most that you miss of your life before the fire?
Oh, good question.
Mm.
Um, I would say probably I mentioned those some of those things that we lost before, and I would say just the community of people that we were starting to build over the last 2 or 3 years.
Mm.
Um, People that were part of our church family, but then also people in the community that we were really involved with.
Mm.
There's a lot of people that we probably will never see again because they moved to a different state. They moved to different areas, and so we had created
Mm.
a great bond with a lot of people. Um, and then there's elements of Paradise that like we were talking about earlier. I grew up in Paradise, and so you do a lot of things that you remember as a child, and even in your teenage years, and as an adult that you did. Whether it was hiking in some of the trails and going down to the river and playing, those are still there, and you can do it, but it's just not the same. Um, and yeah, so those I would say those are the few things that I probably missed the most was community, and then just some of the outdoor activities we would do over there.
Yeah. So another question. So
Hmm.
what is the challenge that after? I mean, the challenge that you have, after this year, after the fire.
Yeah. Um, at least for us personally, or I should say for
Mhm.
me personally,
Mhm.
um, had to do. Some of it was emotionally and mental. There was big traumatic events affect us in all different ways, and how we deal with it is I think it's so paramount. Um,
Would you go to
yeah.
sleep or
So for
kind of
me,
thinking like a fire or something, or have you experienced that, or maybe not to that
no,
that kind of
I
level?
haven't. Yeah, no, I haven't woken up and like been terrified like there's a fire gonna happen or whatnot. But there's just for a long time I didn't. There was a few months where I had a hard time sleeping. I didn't sleep very good, and I would say there's only been maybe 10, 20 times over the last year that I've had a rock solid sleep, where you
Mm.
slept so good at night and you just felt great. I would say for the most part, sleep is it hasn't been the most restful, but um, anxiety and a little bit of depression that's kind of been
Mm.
a result. There was a little bit of that prior, but the fire and the aftermath was kind of a catalyst for more anxiety and depression and whatnot. So
So I'm sure, like, like you see all those people coming down from the mountain of paradise, and
mhm,
where they're gonna be living. I mean, you didn't have home. I mean,
yeah,
I guess you have a little money or something. I mean, let's get a hotel.
yeah,
But I mean, for how long? I mean, 10 days, 20 days, a
yeah,
month. I mean, how much it costs?
yeah,
A lot of people I see in the news. I mean, they were just with the tent or inside in the churches or schools, or the government provide with stuff. It's very tough. I cannot imagine for that.
we were um, my family, my wife and kids, and then also my extended family, my parents and sister. We were incredibly blessed and just very fortunate having a strong network of
Mm.
community within our church and outside our church. And so when I say church, my church family, the people I go to church with, um, they, it was just incredible. Just people opening us with their open arms. So, the first few nights right after the fire, we stayed in a hotel.
Mhm.
And then we then stayed in some friend's house in Chico for about a week. And then we moved to an apartment. We finally secured an apartment, which just before the fire, the vacancy, the amount of houses and places to rent in Chico was less than 2%. So Chico is less than 100,000 people. So if you can imagine, like the amount of apartments and houses available to rent was just tiny.
Yeah,
And then you have
20,000 people
thousands and
showing up,
thousands
and
of people, and there's nothing. And so, again, we were fortunate, very blessed to be able. And I just think it was a miracle. These things kind of worked out the way they did, for us to secure an apartment, and then eventually move into a home this last spring. But yeah, like you said, many people either were in tents and in motorhome RVs. Some people stayed in a hotel for a year, and some of that has to do with their insurance will pay. You have a certain amount of fire insurance, or a certain level of insurance that will take care of, like, if your home gets destroyed, they'll put you up in a hotel or something, for you can be up to 2 years, I think. And so, but some people didn't have those means, and yes, they had to stay in a tent. Many people became homeless overnight. It was really sad, and displaced and put elsewhere. So
Yeah.
it was really
So how are
sad.
you doing after a year? I mean, you and your family. I mean, you got jobs. I mean, it's like serious. It's like you're not nothing. I mean, your paperwork, your computer. I mean, how am I gonna send? I mean, thanks God we have technology, your phone or something. But I mean, I don't know if you would say, oh, I need to go grab my computer or something. I mean, sometimes you don't have time for that.
Yeah.
You have you have a job right now and all stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like a normal life, I guess, in Chico now after a year.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say it's normal.
Yeah.
We've definitely, I feel like it's kind of life kind of rebooted, if you will, like, because it's like almost starting over. It's almost like we moved to a whole different state, even though Chico is 20 minutes away from Paradise.
It's totally
And
different.
we still
It
see a
looks
lot
different.
Yeah, it looks different. And,
Yeah.
we have a lot of the same friends that we had before, but, we're living a new environment. We were part of a different church community. Yeah, it's totally different. But at the same time, I think from day one, Noel and I had made an effort to remain positive and try to be as optimistic as possible. And, not, we realized that there was going to be hardships. We realized that there's issues like be depressed or get mad or whatever, but not to stay in that mindset. And so with that kind of attitude, I think that helped. And so, yeah, a year later, we're good. We're moving forward, and we're loving life at the moment. And Noel and I both work. To answer your question, I was able to grab my computer and all my camera stuff. That was one thing I grabbed right away.
Camera boy and drawing everything, because before the fire, I mean, you were a freelancer. I mean, like a video, doing commercial. I'm glad that you got some gear.
No, yeah, I was able to grab it, and thanks, my son actually, he had the foresight to grab a bunch of stuff leaving the house. Like, I didn't think about it, but he was just grabbing things for us, like, and put it in the car. So we turned out okay.
Don't forget tripod.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I was able to do a little bit more freelance stuff, but then I ended up taking a position with a company here in Chico as one of their designers. So yeah, we're doing good.
Great.
We have much to be thankful for.
So one of the last, I had two more questions to ask you, but
Sure.
One is,
take your time.
Okay, me too. Okay, so what was the blessing you can talk about, like, after a fire? I mean, what in the middle of chaos or in the middle of craziness, do you feel blessed? I mean, do you feel blessed? I mean, I don't know. I mean, after a fire, I mean, I'm sure in that moment when you were going crazy, I mean, what is God? I mean, God bless. Help me. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's sometimes hard to think about that kind of stuff. It's easier when you have a kind of a faith perspective, a worldview based on faith, and specifically Christian faith.
Yeah.
Because you can think about, like, the big picture, like how everything is, and I think I mentioned this at the beginning, like, as a Christian, I was like, I understand that trials and tribulations are going to happen. Bad things may happen, or they
Mhm.
may not happen, but these things are going to happen in life, and I need to put my trust in something higher. Um, I think some of the biggest blessings have been um, being grateful for community, for family, and realizing, and I started to say this, like so many people just were outpouring from everywhere, just um, helping in so many ways, and just giving. Like, and there's people that I didn't even know that were reaching out to us and checking up on us and helping us in different ways, and you we were able to see a side of um, of community and people that is
Mhm.
just absolutely amazing. So definitely blessed by people's outpouring of their goodness. Yeah.
Amen, amen. That's great. Uh, the last one. Do you have a verse in the Bible, or you have a quote that it was that verse in the Bible was like, you know what, this is the one that I need to hold on to it
Yeah.
in these trials and situation.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many
Hmm.
of those in the Bible. Riddle, if you go through Psalms, you see so many of those. As David was fleeing from Saul, and he relied on God and was pleading with God to save him, and he definitely pinned out, the promises. But my wife and I were talking about this too, and there's the verse in Jeremiah 29:11
Hmm.
where it talks about how, and God's talking to Israel, and Israel was in captivity,
Hmm.
and God's like, I have good plans for you, and they're plans for you to prosper and be in good health, not to be bad, not to my plans aren't for you to be evil,
Hmm.
or for evil to fall upon you. I'm paraphrasing this, but
Yeah,
he's like,
the
my
hope.
I have good
Mhm.
I have good things for you. My
Yeah.
my plans for you for prosper and good hope for the future. And so it's just a good reminder. It's like, yeah, these things come in your path, and they may be disastrous, and they may be so traumatic, but ultimately, when you trust in me and you follow me and all these things, I have plans for you.
Mhm.
You may not be able to see it, but if you trust in me, I have good things for you down the road and in the future. So that's been a blessing
Yeah,
to have that verse.
yeah, 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 for sure. So what you can tell the people that go to trials and tribulation, because I mean you had it for the first hand, right? And what you can tell those people, uh, um, some word of hope.
Y- Yeah. So, I know our experience is unique to us, but I know there's places in the world that people are going through a lot worse, and even in the United States. But um, I I think, you know a couple things. Well, first, recognizing that, yeah, these things happen, and emotions will come um, upon us that may feel like negative emotions, like angry or more bitterness or resentment, or complaining or whatnot. And I feel like when those things happen, I think it's okay. Personally, I think it's okay to be angry, and I think it's okay to question, like, why did this happen? And it's okay to feel some of these negative emotions,
Mhm.
because I feel like it's natural. It's these things that are just part of our body, and our mind, the way we think about it. But um, I guess my thought is making a conscious decision not to stay in those negative. So many people
Mhm.
people that I know even to this day that came out of the campfire are still in that kind of negative space. They haven't left that. They're still struggling. They're still wondering, why is this happening? This, and they're depressed and they're negative and they're unhappy all the time. But having that, positive, trying to remain positive, for the most part. And we definitely, my wife and I both saw counselors after the fire too, to help us kind of go through that process. Yeah, I would totally recommend that as well, is seeking professional help. And then, not everybody is going to believe in God, or have that faith.
Mhm.
But I know for me, is that's like, that was a definitely a must, and believing in something and having faith in something stronger and bigger than myself to have as an anchor to rely on. So those are just like, we could go all night
Yeah,
talking about this kind of stuff, but
course.
those are the first few things that kind of come to mind.
All right, all right.
Yeah.
Well, friends, thank you so much for taking the time. I mean, we here come to know a little more Brandon Mascareñas and his story about surviving. I mean, the flames of fires at Paradise, California, and what happened last year. Brandon, thank you so much for sharing with us. I mean, I know it's personal stuff, and sometimes it's hard. Of course, every time, like, hey, can you please remember that? Go back to that where you live. I mean, it's like, man, I don't want to talk about it. Some people's like, I don't want to talk about it, and see, whatever. I lost my house. So everything. But I'm very thankful. Thank you for the time and here in Just Be Blessed, sharing your testimony, what you
Thank
went
you.
through, and maybe I will invite you next time something for uplifting message or something.
Would love that. Thank you. Anytime.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
totally. All right, guys. Another testimony live here in Just Be Blessed. And remember, I just want to share with you that you can go to our YouTube channel, Just Be Blessed, to go see more videos. And this is all the videos that's gonna be here, filming and Facebook Live, and Just Be Blessed. We're gonna upload it here in our YouTube channel, and you can watch our testimony of a brother, Jerry Bowling. That was last week, and people have been watching it. Praise the Lord, and I hope it's gonna be a huge blessing for you guys' life, right? And they're coming. It's gonna be. I will let you know. Go check it out, our Facebook page or Instagram. Who's gonna be here in our show here in Facebook Live, and Just Be Blessed. And remember, here we sharing people's testimonies and uplifting messages on how God is good. Remember, just be blessed. Bye-bye.